This episode, a detour in 2022 for Xbox fans. Master Chief gets a little frisky, and is the Pentaverate the end of Michael Myers? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, where we're the #1 tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook. We've got a ton of games going each and every week right here at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, plus Twitch, YouTube, and so much more. Plus, also as well, we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture right there on Pop Culture Cosmos at Facebook. Plus, the Lakers Fast Break, where we cover the NBA and so much more. Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Game Source, the great folks at Humanican Media, also as well, popculturecosmos.com. And if you can go ahead and support all of that, like, share, subscribe, follow, and do anything that you can to support all those entities, it is sincerely appreciated. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is our own Pentaverate, or Illuminati, of the Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.com. His amazing stuff that he's got waiting for you at Humanican Media, including the Super BS Gamescast, and also as well his amazing book, Congratulations You Suck, and in the archives, also as well Topicocalypse. You got to go ahead and catch that wherever you get your podcasts. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's up, man?
I did it. I finally did it. I sat down on the couch and I watched Uncharted.
There you go.
And I have a thought. Would have
Okay.
been 100 times better as a streaming series.
Agreed.
I didn't dislike the concept. I just felt like everything was so rushed.
Yep.
I also didn't like the boat helicopter fight, but that I could have stomached that if I could have had like a longer, thing. If I could have had a longer story.
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but I think you are with CW, and as far as that concerned, Robbie Amell, who's in the Arrowverse and the Flashverse and all that stuff, he's in a show recently that ended its season 2. You got to check it out on Amazon Prime. It's called Upload. Really cool comedy, really cool concepts. Wish they had a little bit more upgrade on the production values, but outside of that, I think it's a really good watch. I think you got to check it out. He plays the lead character. He would be a great Nathan Drake in a series had that come to fruition. So yeah, I'm just thinking it should have been fleshed out a lot more as well.
Oh, dang, you're right. Yeah, his brother is Arrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I was just watching him on this show called Upload. Again, him and Andy Allo just do a terrific job. Great concept. It's from the writer of The Office, one of the writers of The Office, and he just has done a great job in creating this scenario as far as a near future type scenario where once you die, you can either go to heaven as normal, or you could just be uploaded into this. Your consciousness can be uploaded, and then it's this Stephen Armell, Robbie Amell, he gets uploaded into this consciousness called Lakeview, and some whole bunch of things happen, and there's a love story and a love triangle going on, and it's actually gone, like I said, gone through 2 seasons now. It's pretty good watched. I binged through it over the weekend, and I highly recommend Upload. So hopefully everybody will give it a chance if you got Amazon Prime, but Robbie Amell would be a guy I would throw out there as a future Nathan Drake if the opportunity so be that gets into.
Yeah, I mean, I could see he's got the look. I didn't dislike Tom Holland in the role. I just like it was not the way that the character was created in my mind, especially after playing the video games.
Agree. That's what I'm saying. I just think he would be a better match. I think he would actually do a great job. Him or Scott Eastwood. I've been mentioning him for years as far as it's concerned. But I
Yeah.
just think, like I said, Uncharted missed for me as well. It wasn't super bad. It was just there.
Mm.
Unfortunately, it just didn't connect with us, and so hopefully, again, we do support it because it is a video game related project, and we'll talk about another video game related project that we're supporting, that we're watching, and is taken another controversial turn in Halo Episode 8. So we'll be talking about that here in a bit. Plus, also as well, there's a new thing that's going on as far as a Spinal Tap 2 reunion. That's right. Spinal Tap 2 could be on the way. We could be turning it back up to 11, so we'll be talking about that. The Pentaverate has gotten some scathing reviews. That is the latest effort from Michael Myers coming back to his own project where he gets to go ahead and create his own Illuminati, because I know Illuminati is all the news with Doctor Strange and all that, but he tried to create his own Illuminati, and unfortunately, it's gotten off to some really bad results. Could this be the end of the style of comedy Michael Myers wants to bring to you? We'll talk about that on the back end of the show. Plus, Resident Evil debuted a couple new trailers for its upcoming series. We'll talk about that coming up on the back end. Again, I said Halo Episode 8. EA and FIFA, they have had a divorce that's finalized. It's both are parting ways. We'll talk about the future for EA and FIFA and what could happen there coming up in a bit. Plus, also a major delay now for Xbox fans. We just recently recorded an episode on the video game scene, and we might have to change quite a few things because Xbox's future looks pretty different now, and we'll talk about that coming up on the show as well. But first, my friend, this week's box office, this weekend at the box office, Doctor Strange falls sharply. And with these Marvel movies, they always fall sharply. Anywhere from 55 to 70% is usually the average. We're in that range. But to be on the larger side, the 70% side, which the Doctor Strange movie, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is trending, that's not a good sign. That tells me that the word of mouth isn't as strong, and that tells me that Doctor Strange isn't as much of a gotta go see it movie or gotta go see it character as they were hoping to, let's say, in like an Iron Man or a Captain America, which people have always seemed to support back in the days. This movie will still make a ton of money, but not quite the amount I think that Marvel was hoping it would make.
Well, Marvel makes a majority of its money off of like families. I mean, maybe families and kids. Young kids like to go see these movies. Like that's what the action figures, the marketing is all geared towards young kids. Right, word of mouth coming out of this movie is that it should have been rated R. It was incredibly violent, it was incredibly dark, and it was very graphic. And like you have these like horror elements. Like, so from the parents that I've spoken to, they were like, I really wish I didn't take my kids to see this movie, right? Like, or they're saying my kids had nightmares, or it was too demonic, or there's just it was too violent, graphic, dark, whatever you want to call it. Just they're not saying that they dislike the movie, but they're just saying I wouldn't take my kids to see that. And that's what I'm hearing from everybody, and that's what I'm reading around the internet. And it's just you're losing a big chunk of box office revenue from people not taking their like families who have grown up with these Marvel films to see something like Doctor Strange. It was just such a departure from what we know and love about the Marvel Cinematic Universe into something much, I guess, darker. I guess is the only word I can think
Well,
of for
it
that.
was going to with Doctor Strange. It had to end up that way, but like you said, they didn't want to throw a R rating on it
Mm-hmm.
because they thought it would hurt for that specific Marvel product. They don't want to attach an R label to it, as opposed to what DC does with its Black Label movies, like for instance the Joker, which gained over $1 billion, and that was a success as an R-rated movie. In fact, the
Right.
biggest R-rated movie of all time. I don't see Marvel and Disney thinking in that same way about their movies. they want to, with Doctor Strange, they were willing to push it as far as they could, but not go far enough for that. Scott Derrickson, left the project because he
Yeah.
wanted to push it into an even darker realm. I think Sam Raimi did the best of what did the best he could with what he had. But unfortunately, again, when you're trying to deal with a PG-13 rating, and you're not only going to get it too scary for younger audiences, but you're not going to get it scary enough and compelling enough for older audiences.
Well, yeah, and that's why they're kind of on the edge of that I guess they're on the
It's a
edge.
tightrope.
Yeah, they're on the tightrope. They're on the edge of the sword, I guess, trying to see like, oh, hey, I can push this to the limits of a PG-13 movie and have families come out and say like, "Oh man, don't take your kids to see this movie." Or they could have made it a rated R film and really pushed it even farther and had something, created audiences like Deadpool or whatever. I think that the movie kind of lost its identity being stuck in between one or the other.
Yeah. Well, it's something that, again, that shows or should show to Marvel that when they have that first weekend of May opening, they need to do it with a film I think that's going to reach to a broader audience. This
Mhm.
was a gamble that, yes, it's still going to make right around $1 billion, but to me, that's kind of not a win. That's kind of like a fail, because if you're going to make 800, $900 million from that type of movie now in the first full year that we're getting back to the theaters as a society, I don't consider that a win. I think that, especially coming off the huge success of Spider-Man No Way Home, and it earning almost $1.9 billion, getting a movie that's going to earn about half that in its overall worldwide take, I think is kind of a step backwards for Marvel.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and hopefully Thor, when Thor comes out, that'll be more back to the Marvel that is a little more family friendly. But
Yeah. A
yeah, I think
lighter, more comedic.
like right, right. I think that this was just a movie that people weren't ready for, and like I said, it kind of it wasn't sure what it wanted to be, and
And
I
I
think
think Moon Knight's the same way. Moon Knight went to a dark realm, and I think that from the latest ratings that I've seen and read, that it's not earning quite the ratings that they wanted it to. And I think that just is showing Marvel that yes, they might want to go into this Midnight Suns and all that dark stuff with Ghost Rider and Blade and all that stuff, but they better be careful how they present it and package it, because it may not end up being as successful as they want it to be.
well, don't like be afraid if you want something to be dark, make it dark, but make it do that to the best of like I don't know, make it dark, make it something that's like going to really appeal to people who want that kind of content.
Yeah.
Don't make something that's going to teeter on the edge so that like, oh hey, my kids like the first 3 episodes, but then we stopped watching because I saw some guy get decapitated, right? Like don't make it have to balance in between these two things because then you're going to push people away on both sides of that fence.
What are your thoughts out there on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? Was it everything that you wanted in a Marvel movie, or were you concerned about the violence, the scares, or were you not getting enough out of it? Did you want it one way or the other? Did you want it more family friendly, or did you want it more on the darker side? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's still much more to talk about on this episode. Wanted to hit you up on the delays. We had a great conversation that we're going to go ahead and drop here in a few weeks on the video game scene. With no E3, we have to go ahead and improvise on what these companies are going to do going forward. And part of that conversation was how good the outlook was going to be for Xbox. But something happened along the way, and unfortunately, that includes the delays that were just announced for the two first party games on the slate for Xbox in Redfall and Starfield. Starfield is the bigger of the two. That was going to drop on November 11th. They're both now pushed back to the early part of next year. Your thoughts on how, I guess, first of all, it's a great disappointment for Xbox owners, Xbox fans. But what is this going to do to the Xbox brand for 2022?
I don't really think it's going to do. I mean, I'll get to the game delay in a second, but as for the branding, I don't think it's really going to do much because if you look at it, as we discussed, on that episode we made, neither of the three big console manufacturers have announced like officially announced and dated any titles coming out in the holiday season. So I don't think
Starfield was really the only one.
Starfield was really the only one. So I don't think it's really going to be damaging to console sales. But that being said, they need to now there is no like big game coming out. So when these summer gaming festival or summer gaming conferences happen, much like we discussed with Nintendo and PlayStation, Xbox is going to have something. Whether it's a Forza game, whether it's new campaign DLC for Halo Infinite or Fable or whatever it might be, they have to have something come out that's going to essentially bolster their holiday sales. Otherwise, like um, it's going to be a very slow year for games once again. And the like the middle of the year was packed pretty full, right? We had
Yeah.
Elden Ring and Tiny Tina and Final Fantasy
Horizons.
Horizon. Yeah, it was a decent middle of the year, but as for like holiday sales for all three of them, like it's just going to be slow and sad because nobody's really announced anything. And the word on the street is that God of War might not even make it
Yeah, so
out
that's what I was going to ask you.
the
God of War
holiday
Ragnarok.
season. So I don't know. Like I'm really hoping that when these summer gaming conferences happen, we're going to hear something because as of right now, I know we're talking about like, hey, what would we like to see? I don't know what I'd like to see because nothing seems to be anywhere close to being complete. But that being said, with Starfield, like I would rather have them spend a few extra months on it than make it complete and good, so it doesn't come out the gate being like Mass Effect Andromeda, where it's incomplete and glitchy,
Or Fallout 76.
or Fallout 76, which is they've kind of fumbled their last couple big releases. But fortunately, like quarter one, having it being a quarter one release means that we'll probably see the game around February or March, which is not really that long to have to wait for it.
But the thing is, the Christmas shopping season, the Black Friday shopping season, I stress on it so much because it's so important to overall sales in the overall industry. If God of War Ragnarok gets pushed back to 2023, then
Mhm.
you've really got some things to talk about as far as the lack of big name
Right.
releases. So it could be very problematic. People could just say, you know what, I'm going to wait. I'm going to save my money. I've got to, right now things are the economy and all that stuff is going on,
Yeah.
inflation and all that. You got to worry about things and be careful where you're spending your money. So people could back off of what they're hearing, what they're seeing as far as the lack of big name games. Plus, the console availability is still going to be tight, anyways, going on there. Sony said it's trying to increase its production, and they're not going to. It's not going to meet the kind of production that they want still, but it is getting a little bit better. You see the things that are going on with Xbox Series S and X. Xbox Series S is still available and out there. X is kind of come and go, but still leading into the holiday season, it's going to be a very busy time, but it may not be as busy. People might actually just go ahead and say, you know what, I'm going to wait until next year before I get
Yeah.
that next big console.
On a positive note, though, this could be a good chance for indie developers to kind of take the spotlight because I don't know if you've played any decent indie games lately, but a lot of these are very deep and fulfilling narratives and gameplay, and like it a lot of these indie games are very rich in just every aspect. So I mean, if we're not going to get these big AAA titles, like this is a great time to put some spotlight on some of the really great indie devs that are pushing things out for all three, all three consoles.
Absolutely. So we'll see what happens, but it is a major change in the schedule for Xbox fans as Starfield and Redfall, the two major first party releases for the company that have been announced for this year, have now been pushed back to next year. So I know this is frustrating for Xbox fans, but please share your frustrations with us, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com, and let us know if you are really frustrated or angry about this, or you hope and you believe that this will lead to a better game for both. Please let us know, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Still so much more to talk about in the video game world as EA, Electronic Arts, recently had an announcement along with FIFA saying that they have parted ways. FIFA saying that they're going to search out new games as far as a new company to go ahead and develop their soccer, their famed, license and licensed games. As far as it's concerned, EA lost the FIFA license for their upcoming soccer games. EA is still going to be doing some soccer, aka football games that are going in the future, and that's still going to be a part of their library. But with FIFA heading into a different direction and looking for a new partner for creating their games, and EA coming out, or hopefully in the future, according to them, coming out with soccer games, aka football games, in the future under their own banner. This looks like a lose-lose situation as far as it's concerned, with big loser of the two being EA. Your thoughts on this? I mean, FIFA will probably find some third-party developer that will create a game. We don't know if it'll be as streamlined or as sometimes good as FIFA is, although the Nintendo Switch versions have been awful. Their console counterparts, the larger console counterparts, have been okay, and obviously they made EA a ton and FIFA a ton of money with the microtransactions and all that. But your thoughts on this whole situation? FIFA games have been some of the biggest selling games worldwide over the past 10 years. This is a big decision that both parties made and that they couldn't come to agreement. Your thoughts on EA and FIFA breaking up for good, or at least for now, anyways?
Yeah, it's I don't know, like FIFA, I EA has money and resources and marketing. Like I don't see FIFA going to a third party studio. You're not going to get a game that's anywhere near as good as what EA can do for that
At
company.
least not right away.
At least not right away. But I mean, I just looking at there's no third party developers that I can even think of that have the resources and the
Well, Konami,
capabilities
but we
that
saw
EA.
that. But we saw with esports football how that went.
Yeah, but and even if you were to go to a Konami or I mean, I guess even looking at like a um, what do you call it, like THQ or whatever the
Or
Embracer Group
2K,
or 2K. Yeah, there's just there's nowhere near as much like marketing power and money and
2K.
development power. 2K, yeah, but I mean they're just a publisher. They're not a developer.
But no, but the NBA 2K games, I mean, they've also followed that same route with the NBA 2K games, and they've mastered the art of microtransactions, which they have admittedly said they love so much.
Right, but I mean, even if they did, it would be some time before they were able to release a quality product. I mean, they're
Yeah,
not gonna put out a good soccer game right out the gate.
no,
And we have EA, like, what, you're just gonna create a generic soccer game? Like, you have to go through and have the rights to the names and the contracts and the merchandise. You have to have, like, I don't know, you have to be able to go through and create this whole, like, new infrastructure for another soccer game,
I
and
mean, it's just happened before in
it
what in football in American
right.
style football where they've lost like 2K. They've lost a game. They've lost the ability to go ahead and work with the NFL. So they try to get a couple players, famous players, on it and attach them and put
Mhm.
some get whoever they can contract on it. So you have like a dozen famous players in there, but the rest are generic
Yeah.
programs in
It's
there. And yeah, it's
it
just
just loses the P F FIFA is popular because soccer fans there's a ton of soccer fans out there who like these games, and if
yeah.
you're removing all the players and all that all the fandom is not going to go to a game that only has, like, 12 or 13, 14, 15
Yeah.
famous players in it. So, I don't know, I think that both sides have lost in this whole thing. I do understand, however, where EA is coming from, where they're so FIFA was so limited on what they were allowed to do and how they were allowed to market, and there's a lot of walls and red tape put up.
Plus the rights fees.
The rights fees. Like there was just it was ridiculously expensive for EA to put these games out, and who's to even say with all the contractual things how much they actually were able to profit off of a lot of these.
But EA Sports FC is going to be the name of the upcoming EA soccer/football game that's coming up. and we'll see what happens with the FIFA end, who they can get to go ahead and develop their next video game. But if you have any thoughts out there on EA and FIFA officially divorcing after 30 years of working together on video games, please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. I think this is going to be huge. I think that this is going to fracture the community. Plus, Konami's eFootball, which we used to love previously under the different name and how it went
Yeah.
out before, it was always the underappreciated version of it. They changed it, became a free to play game, and it really just tanked, and it was really not that
Well,
good, not that well received, and yeah.
yeah. Konami makes slot machines. Like they're into like gambling, and that's what this platform is like perfect for them because they're putting microtransactions up there and
Should have just kept it PS. Should have
yeah,
just kept it PS. But
yeah.
what are we going to do? What are you going to do? But if you have any thoughts on EA and FIFA breaking up for good, please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, before we hit the break, my friend, I'm going to continue the video game theme going here for the next few minutes, even after the break, coming out of it with Resident Evil. But first, it is your friend and mine, Master Chief, continuing his venture on Paramount Plus in Halo Episode 8. And this whole series has garnered a lot of controversy and a lot of talk online with fans about if they loved it or they've not loved it. We've shared our thoughts continuously on this show as far as our feelings on it, and they've not been strong. But your thoughts on this latest episode as it leads into what most likely will be the fall of Reach, or how they portray the fall of Reach, because the Covenant artifact was set off by the human that was taken by the Covenant at an early age and indoctrinated, and then she returned to Earth and she developed a relationship with Master Chief. It's now to the point where Master Chief has had relations for the first time ever in the whole video game series and whatnot with this
I'm gonna play some
individual.
slow jazz in the background when you edit this.
I'm gonna have to probably take a shower. It's just what I'm gonna have to say. But it's just so weird because this series also likes voyeurism, because while he's in the the gist of romance and all that with this individual lady that again was indoctrinated by the Covenant and works for the Covenant secretly,
She had
Cortana's
turned.
watching.
Oh yeah, that was weird. That
Yeah,
was actually really
but
weird.
again, remember the other earlier in the series when Master Chief was taking this, the motion chip out of his near his, his butt region.
Mhm.
There the other Spartan lady was watching. This series loves voyeurism, and it's so weird. It's so creepy, and the fact that Master Chief, they're not focusing at all on what we love as gamers about Halo. I mean, his helmet, he might have thrown. Did he throw his helmet in the trash? I
Well, I
don't
was
know.
gonna say we haven't seen Chief and Helmet for like the past 3 episodes, so it's not
I've given up on that.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, this episode was it was interesting. So my wife
We're
walked
trying
in.
to be as family friendly as possible, by
Yeah,
the way.
she walked in like maybe 5 minutes after that scene had occurred, and I like paused it, and she looks at me. She goes, What are you thinking about?" I'm like, what are two like childhood icons for you?" She goes, "I don't know, Mickey and Minnie Mouse." I was like, "Yeah, well, imagine if they got intimate
Yeah,
and you had to watch it. How
for
would
the
that make
first
you
time.
feel?" Yeah, and I was like, "How would that make you feel?" She goes, kind of disgusted, probably." And I was like, "Yeah, Master Chief just lost his virginity." And
Yeah,
she goes, "Oh, that's gross. Why would they do something like that?"
it just is ridiculous. And then Halsey, Dr. Halsey has become this like really evil person.
Oh, right,
And it
right.
just, I mean, it's veering off. I understand she's always had her issues with UNSC in the series, but she's just veering off into just all out badness on the show. She's coming out as the worst one of everyone.
She was like playing the field. I mean, not not in a relational way, but she was playing the field as far as like her loyalties, her
Hmm.
allegiances go. And yeah, she just really took a drastic turn there, saying
A
like,
really
"Oh, I
dark
wanted."
turn.
And it was just unfortunate, that it happened, that she like went to McKee with that, and McKee's like, "I know nothing about humans, and this lady's awful," and it
Yes.
just kind of skewed her view because I it was
McKee
I
is the indoctrinated human by the
yeah,
coven.
it was really interesting watching her like I don't know, come like be a part of humanity for a little bit, and then but I just didn't like how they I don't know, none of this episode, like, it didn't make sense. She tries to tell them that John's getting beat up, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna poke and prod you with my little electricity sticks." It just doesn't make sense. Not that, like, that wouldn't even happen in like the worst sci-fi shows. Like none of this makes any sense. And why?
This might be one of the worst sci-fi shows.
Yeah, why does it matter that she like helped kill that UNSC crew? It doesn't matter. You know that she was with the Covenant. Why are you like, oh, it's a big deal now? Like you knew this. You knew this. So why is this becoming a big deal? And I don't know, man. Like I was starting to after I got over the initial shock of seeing like Master Chief and McKee together, I was like, I'm actually starting to like kind of enjoy her character a little bit. And then they're like, and then they just completely changed the dynamic.
And again,
Um,
Dr. Halsey looking this evil, this bad,
she
and
ruined everything. Like
yeah,
she ruined everything. That being said, though, this is like the first time I was actually kind of sad to see the credits roll because I just really want to know what's going to happen now.
okay. We had talked before we went on the air about things or movies or entities or properties that you thought were so bad it's good, craptastic as a way to say it, but I don't know. Seriously though, it's still not getting any better for me,
This
and
is
we're 8 episodes in.
it's go okay. So I did watch the last episode. Remember, you told me I need to
Yeah.
watch it. I did not care at all about any of that. Like I think I was doing like three other things while the episode was on, just briefly checking into it on occasion. Really don't care about Soren that much. Really don't care about Quan that much, which is sad because I want to, but they're just like not exciting to me or interesting. It's very their stories seem very one dimensional. Did think it was cool though how there's a monitor on that was talking to Quan's dad. Like that was the only thing I thought was really like redeeming about that episode. But I'm telling you, man, we're on episode. That was episode 8. I think it's like
Yes.
a 12 episode run. Am I?
I thought it was 10 or 12. Yeah.
Okay. These last 2 or 3 episodes, they're gonna have to be amazing. If they want to end this season, if they only have so much time to redeem themselves now before the season's over. Like these episodes are gonna have to be amazing. And I mean like really, really cool in order to kind of turn my opinion around on this because even if they were to do something awesome in the last episode, it's not going to change the fact that I had to watch 11 episodes of like controversial and mediocre buildup. Like I need to have at least 3 solid episodes, but if my mind is going to be changed on this series.
This show has not only jumped the shark, it's jumped off the rails, it's gone through the train station. This thing has really just gone out of control.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Paramount, you got to be ashamed yourselves because this is really just something that's been not fun at all to watch. But what are your thoughts out there on Master Chief? Just a gigolo, and everywhere he goes. I don't know. Master Chief getting intimate for the first time ever, and all the controversy going on surrounding this series and episode 8. If you have any thoughts, please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. And I hope you do because we've always got a lot to say on Halo. But coming up after the break, we're going to be talking some good things, including Resident Evil, the Pentaverate, Spinal Tap 2. That's right. We're going to turn up to 11 with Spinal Tap 2. That and more coming up after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Josh Peterson and me, Gerald Glassford. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Once again, I want to remind you that we're the #1 tabletop RPG streamer on Facebook. Check out our friends, Vampires and Vitae, Whiskey and Wine, Demolition Force, and all the great things that are happening each and every week. right there for you. All the great games. Mitch is on the weekends. Just some great times indeed, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos on Twitch and Facebook. Truly appreciate you watching and listening. But Josh, getting back into what we're talking about on this week's episode, Resident Evil is back on Netflix. The movie that just came out a few months ago was underwhelming performance wise and also as well critically. But they're back at it again. Sony and Netflix doing another deed as far as a series this time around for Resident Evil, where the city, this new city that's created, everybody seems to go to. They start taking this drug that turns them into the zombies, and the apocalypse happens, and Resident Evil and all that good stuff. So I want to hear your thoughts on the Resident Evil series that's upcoming. It doesn't look good to me, but as a bigger Resident Evil fan than I am, I hope it starts to look good for you.
Okay, so I mean, I'm gonna watch the first couple episodes, but it to me
Brave
it
man.
looks. I just like I don't know anything about this based on the trailer. I don't know what to think. Like, how does the T? This looks like it's creating an origin story, and how does the T virus get out? But it feels more like a show that belongs on the CW than something that's true to the Resident Evil mythology. It also feels like they're trying to create the next Walking Dead, which is not something I'm in a hurry to dive back into. This is I don't know. I look at where the movies with was it the Mia Jovovich movies? Looking
Yeah.
at where those went, like they tried to cater to both fans of the video game and people who are like, "Oh, let me just see what Resident Evil is all about." This one, they seem to have split. Right, Sony has split this franchise into movies that are direct adaptations of the video games, which would be Welcome to Raccoon City, and then the like, let's not tie this to any video game, but let's keep it, within the realms of Resident Evil, which seems to be what this Netflix show is going to be. This Netflix show, though, it does not look good at all. Like, there's nothing in that trailer that made me think to myself, I really need to watch this.
Right. It seems like it's just going to be a series, like you said, like a wannabe Walking Dead, but they slapped the Resident Evil name on it just because that Sony figured, okay, anything in that realm, we're just going to go ahead and slap a Resident Evil name on it and see if
Right.
that actually has a name value because people love name value. So,
Yep.
had it come out under a different name, like the Land of the Dead or something like that, it probably would not generate as much interest as far as the initial trailers and buzz did as Resident Evil, because of the fact it says Resident Evil.
Yeah. Yeah, this feels more like a B grade horror movie than a something worthy of such a le- legacy filled franchise.
Well, definitely not looking forward to it, but I know Josh says he wants to check out the first couple episodes. We'll keep you up to date what's going on when it concerns the new Resident Evil series on Netflix. But are you going to catch it when it hits Netflix? I know that Netflix is trying to do what they can to go ahead and spice up their content because of what's going on in the world of Netflix. But if you have thoughts on what's going on with Resident Evil on Netflix, please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. And I did want to mention when it comes to Netflix, I did say in recent comments that I thought they were shying away from live programming. Turns out it's only live sporting events and live sports that they're kind of shying away from for now. They still want to do competition and reality shows and unscripted shows. They're looking more towards that. And so you should still see in the coming months, if you're a Netflix
They're
viewer.
gonna weight it down with cheap content is what's gonna
Yeah,
happen here.
that's what they're going to try and do. But comedy specials will be in the offering as well for live content. So at least it'll be something different for them to go ahead and do. But they need to start doing things a little bit differently after their rocky start to 2022. But still, so much more to talk about, my friend, on today's episode. Before we get to the Pentaverate and the Illuminati and all that stuff, and Spinal Tap 2 and all that stuff, before we hit the end of the show, wanted to ask you real quick, did you get a chance to see, finally, since they didn't showcase it in your theaters, my friend, the new Avatar trailer? It came out the Monday after the initial release of Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. Did you check out the new Avatar 2 trailer?
Yes, I did, and I'm confused.
How so, my friend? How so?
Well, they have like a character who is obviously on the side of the humans, and then they show in the fact like they've still built this giant facility on Pandora, and it's got a mixture of like the Navi and humans working together, or maybe that's just the new avatars that they've created. Sam, sorry, I'm calling him Sam Worthington. Jake Sully and his wife have like a human child who is running around trees like Tarzan and wearing a breather. I'm very confused on like why or how or when, what is this?
Yes, I know. Well, I told you already. I do not have a affinity for the Avatar franchise at all.
Yeah,
I told you outside of Stephen Lang's performance, I thought this movie was really not that good. But
yeah.
it has garnered. It's the all-time winning box office champ, much to our chagrin. To
Well,
Avengers Endgame, and
the
it's going to come
thing,
back and make more money in September.
right, and the thing that bothers me is it's not even pretty though. Like it's like remember the trailers for the first movie? Like it was
I
pretty,
do.
right? And they showed like the glowing lights and the I don't know, it's like if I had, if I were I don't know if I had really bad ADD, like I would have like that trailer would have been like one of those screensavers with like the fish or whatever. But
Yeah.
like this one, it was just very plain visuals, it didn't really even look cool.
Well,
I
the
don't
thing was, at in 2009, it was cutting
right.
edge, state of the art. It was technology that people were like, just aghast at, that we didn't think
Mhm.
we could actually have that in our lives. I thought it was pretty good, but I didn't think it was that overwhelming
Yeah.
special effects. But that was something that, again, people were overwhelmed by.
Mhm.
Flash forward 12, 13 years later, it's not as amazing anymore because so many other productions have equaled or actually exceeded anything that it's doing right now. So I
Yeah.
don't see it as a big leap this time around, which I think for Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5, however many he's doing, James Cameron, he's filming back to back, to back to back, or whatever, back to back to back. He's What he's doing is just not as advanced and out front as what it once was, because like I said, the technology has caught up with him and what he's been doing.
What'd be ironic is if this movie ended up just tanking and he had wasted 15 years putting these like other 4 or 5 together, like it would.
It won't do 3 billion because there's a chance now with the re-release that Avatar, the original, will go over 3 billion. It won't do 3 billion, but I
Mm,
think just because of the international crowd and audience that would support it, just like they do Fast and Furious and what we talked about earlier with Warcraft. I just think
uh,
that it's going to at least get $1 billion, but that is going to be a disappointment because if the first one earns three and the second one earns one,
I don't
that's
I
night
don't
and
know,
day.
man, like, I don't feel like it's even going to do $1 billion. Like, I think maybe
I think it's
7,
gonna.
800 million, but
I think it's gonna do 1 billion. I
I
just
don't
think
know. We'll
maybe
see.
it's gonna be the heavy lifting. I think will be done internationally. I'm not sure domestically how it will go. It depends on how well it gets received and what the
Yeah,
critical ratings are. But if it's like I said, say like a 70 out of 100 on the Metacritic, then you could see it, the word of mouth not being that great for it after a few weeks. But
yeah,
internationally, I think it's the type of film that's always going to connect. Because if it goes to China, which is the world's largest box office now,
right. Is
it'll
is
make a ton of money there.
is it still though? I mean, yes, it is, but right now a majority of China is still locked down, so
Yeah,
how
good
much
point.
revenue could we expect to see from China right
But then
now?
again, we're talking 7 months down the road
Yeah, that's
because it comes
true.
out in December. So
Yeah, I mean, well, and it's this is all speculation on my part, but I don't know. I just like I'm gonna be watching these numbers carefully because I don't even think that if it makes it to 1 billion, I think it's going to be like a slow climb. It's not going to be something that's going to happen just like that.
well, it's going to have a huge first week opening. I think it's going to have an absolutely huge first week opening. But like Doctor Strange, I guess the future will determine its ultimate success on that. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely see what happens there with Avatar 2, The Way of Water. But if you have thoughts on Avatar 2, The Way of Water, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, before we hit the break, I wanted to go ahead and ask you if you've seen also as well the Westworld trailer that came out recently from HBO and HBO Max this past week for season 4. Not necessarily the show, the trailer per se, but the series. It's coming out here in a few weeks, and it just doesn't have the buzz that it once did. Remember when we were talking about Westworld as that Game of Thrones successor, as the foundational piece for HBO and HBO Max? It never really turned out that way after the first season, but it's still something people watch. But the fact is, HBO and HBO Max hasn't really needed it, and it doesn't really need it as a foundational piece anymore.
It's a far cry from what it once was, though. What made that
Yes.
so popular was, like, the interesting mixture of Western and sci-fi, and now it is literally just another science fiction show, like, bordering on Blade Runner, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it just is not it's lost its appeal to me. Like, me and my wife sat down and watched the last season. I think the last season came out, like, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And, we sat down and watched that, and we both of us sat there at the end of it thinking like, "Oh, it was," it had an interesting story, I guess, but it just was not good. And
Yeah.
so now after seeing this trailer, the trailer has no coherency to it. It's just a bunch of, like, jumbled clips, and, I don't know what to expect. I'm not interested, and though I will probably watch it, I just is not this is not the Westworld that I, like, came to know and enjoy. This is like them trying to be Blade Runner or Altered Carbon or whatever. It feels like a generic sci-fi show now.
Absolutely. I mean, it was supposed to be this big budgeted, very successful foundational piece for HBO at that point in
Mhm.
time, and then HBO Max came along, and I don't know. It just seems like it just never got what it needed to. It never went where it
Yeah,
needed to go,
yeah.
and the fact that it hasn't been that, oh, we got to go ahead and must see it. It has not been appointment viewing. It's just become, and like you said, just another sci-fi show. I think it's disappointing, but it still earns enough viewers for them to keep it around even at the higher price tag that it once has. I don't know if it still has that. Maybe they've found ways to go ahead and scale it back
Mhm.
behind the scenes, but with HBO Max again still on the climb, now hovering around 80 million viewers as far as on their own. And if they when they finally blend and finally come together with the Discovery Plus, that'll be over 100 million viewers. That's
Yeah.
going to be something again where you have that as additional programming. But the reason why they're successful today is even after the day and date, as I said on the Streaming 101 show that people have got to catch, which was really, really good and a great conversation with Melinda on that, on all
Mhm.
the streaming services where we gave out grades and all that. The reason why HBO's on the up is because of the fact that they've developed a lot of great shows we're talking about that aren't necessarily Westworld, that
Yeah.
people are really enjoying, and that's the reason why ultimately that HBO Max has got a great future ahead of it.
Yeah, most definitely, especially, like, if they end up combining the Discovery Plus service into HBO Max, like, I think that HBO Max will be successful for years to come. You don't have to worry about people pausing subscriptions or canceling subscriptions. When there's a drought in content, people just keep that thing running because there's always something to watch on there.
Absolutely.
Uh
But yeah, go
on the
ahead.
streaming oh, sorry, on the streaming note, though, I noticed last night that Amazon's actually, like, sneaking out a bunch of content that's actually not that bad too.
Well, I mentioned Upload. Upload
Yeah,
season 2, which just finished. That was a really good watch. People really have got to go ahead and check it out. Highly recommend Upload season 2. But like you said, they've been putting out some good stuff, and they've got the Lord of the Rings. We
yeah,
gave them a grade where it's on the up. Still a lot more work to be done. Still got to get a lot more stuff in the catalog, but the future is starting to look good because they're now starting to put a focus on what's
yeah.
there in the Prime Video end of it. And Melinda and I had some good things to say. and we think that it's either them or Disney Plus. I think that could eventually surpass, as far as a video entity, could eventually surpass Netflix 2023, 2024, or 2025. You could see a change in the making. We know Disney's on the up. They just reported that they've got, what, 140 million subscribers now, or closing in on it.
Yeah.
If they ever bought out Hulu, which just reported they've got 45 million, and they finally absorbed all that, like Discovery and HBO eventually will, that could be a closer to that realm. I still think that there's more things that need to be done on Disney's end, but again, Netflix has been on that perch for so long. Amazon's got 200 million for other reasons, but
Hmm.
they're with the Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings is a huge hit. They could become a huge entity as far as the Prime Video side of things,
Yeah.
but the things are definitely changing here in the streaming wars, and that I think is good to see.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's always something to watch. It just depends on if you're someone who wants to watch all the things or just some of the things. It's going to decide how much money you're willing to spend. For example, ESPN Plus has been showing hockey all stinking season. And then I sat down to watch the playoffs earlier this week or last week when they started. And they're like, you need a cable subscription to watch this. Why? Like, I don't know, that bothers me.
Absolutely. Well, the ESPN president recently, oh, excuse me, the Disney president, Disney CEO recently said that eventually ESPN will probably lean itself off or wean itself off cable and become a streaming entity in and of itself. So I
See,
think that, yeah, that's what they've actually, he mentioned that it's going to, the future for ESPN is away from cable.
they need to do that though. They need to stop putting I think that the future of sports is are on streaming networks. I don't think that they are on cable the future is on cable anymore because
Well, that's why I
people
was so disappointed when Netflix said around CinemaCon that they were not going to do live sports at this time. So
yeah,
I found
cuz
that disappointing.
if you're trying to get people to like get cable packages, even the ones that do stream that require some kind of cable package or cable subscription, you're looking at like $75 for like YouTube TV or whatever the other ones are. Tubi, I think is no,
Yeah,
what's the Fubo? I think is the other sports one.
Fubo, Hulu does also live TV
Yeah,
package. Yeah,
you're looking at $75 for these packages, and people just can't people go to streaming services because they're cheap. Like you might as well just get cable again, in which case these streaming services who want you to pay this much money are losing out on subscription money because people are like, well, I'll just turn my cable back on. So what is the point?
yeah. What is the point, indeed? But we want to hear your thoughts out there on what's going on with the streaming world. Hopefully, you get a chance again to check out our streaming 101 episode. Had a great conversation. But what are your thoughts out there on Avatar and Westworld? The latest trailers have been shown for the upcoming Avatar and Westworld projects. But please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. My friend, it's been a great episode. But before we head on out, a couple last things. The Pentaverate, which is the latest offering from Michael Myers, who has gotten back into entertaining after a long hiatus. And I know his reprisal of the characters in the Austin Powers series worked great in that commercial, in that really short time setting, as far as earlier this year for the Super Bowl commercials.
Mm-hmm.
But he returns with that same sort of concept as far as creating an Illuminati that's supposedly going to save the world, with him playing several characters within this. And in this comedy, I'm going to put that in quotations, it's not going over well this time around for Netflix. I mean, he looks like he was given the kind of opportunity that Adam Sandler was to go ahead and do a lot of projects for Netflix, and it's hopefully getting the kind of numbers that those poorly received, or those poorly critically received Adam Sandler movies were getting on Netflix, because unfortunately the reviews are really bad for it. Unfortunately for him, that is not a good sign. But let me ask you this: do you think people are still going to go ahead and check it out despite the bad reviews, or do you think that this style of comedy, where an artist plays so many different of the same, so many different characters within the same project, within the same realm, like we've seen from Michael Myers in Austin Powers, now the Pentaverate, Do you think that style of comedy is coming soon to an end?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole Saturday Night Live style comedy is coming to an it's been at an end for a long time. People just aren't interested in that type of thing anymore.
Well,
Like,
but
you look
Saturday
at
Night Live is still getting great ratings.
yeah, but it's not like there's a difference between watching something for 30 minutes and then devoting, an hour and a half to 2 hours to something like that. I mean, look at when I was a kid, I loved Master of Disguise with Dana Carvey. I loved Austin Powers. There was a time and a place for movies like that, and I just don't think we're at that time or place anymore. Especially when there's so many other things that people will be willing to watch.
And that's what you're afraid of getting to when you do this, when you reach back into the nostalgia, that
Mhm.
people are just not willing to go ahead and accept it. The older audiences just kind of like moved on, and the younger audiences just don't get it at all when you see Michael Myers on the screen playing Michael Myers with a different accent, Michael Myers with a different accent, Michael
Right.
Myers with a different. Yeah, it doesn't click with audiences the same
Yeah.
way it did 20 years ago.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But my
That's
friend, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I mean, it's tough figuring out what audiences want these days because there's just so much variety out there, and no
Yeah.
matter how hard you try, you're not gonna be able to please everybody.
Well, that's a good thing though, that there's so much variety out there. That
Yeah,
yes, I understand that you
definitely.
what you talk about with all the higher expenses of the streaming outlets and possibly going back to cable or just going to broadcast.
Mhm.
I have a conversation I've got upcoming with our TV expert Don Fobbs later this week on the PC Multiverse about all the changes on the broadcast end with all the cancellations coming up. But I wanted to go ahead and say before we cut to our final thing that we're going to be talking about is that that's what we've wanted for so many years. When we first started doing this show in 2016, that was the cusp of the streaming era that we were
Right.
getting on. We were hoping for more options. We were hoping for a literal ocean of content
Yeah.
that's to be put out there, and to get to the point where we can't even keep up. And you and I have complained on this show repeatedly about how there's so much out there, it's really hard to keep up. That's not necessarily a bad thing now. That's what we've
Yeah.
always wanted, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we have, but it's also, like, created issues for content providers too, like, people, what am I gonna make? Like what and even if I do make something, what happens if someone who's a fan of something else watches that and is, offended by something that I said that they're not even invested in? Like, what's gonna happen to my career? I don't know. It's such a dangerous it's just so dangerous, being a content creator because, if you're not panned critically, you could get panned social. I don't know. There's just a lot of like it's rough water for anybody creating anything these days.
Yes, it is, my friend. But there's a ton out there. At least you can't say it's not it's not lacking in content. That's the thing.
Right.
There's always something. In fact, right again, Disney has done the same thing to me again. They don't have that non Marvel Star Wars got to stay on Disney Plus content in my opinion. Still, that's their I think their only flaw in their arsenal is that they don't have enough in the arsenal that's not Marvel or Star Wars related to
Right.
keep me or keep a lot of people out there as far as fresh content is concerned. So
Yeah.
what do? I go find other stuff. I found Severance because the last gap. I found Upload because of this gap now, and I think that with the content out there from other streaming parties, if you have enough streaming services or you have options now. You have options to go ahead and say, okay, Disney Plus, you've got nothing coming up right away until Kenobi later this month. I'm going to go ahead and check out some other stuff. That's the problem. You might lose subscribers because of it,
Yeah.
but hey, that's the
Messes with
thing.
retention rates, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, but also, like, yeah, there's a bunch of great stuff out there everywhere, so why am I gonna keep paying? I'm at the point now where I'm about to, like, pause my HBO or pause or cancel my HBO Max subscription because I wanted to watch, something on Peacock, so I don't know, it's like,
Oh, you're
it
one of the few, my friend.
well, I'm curious to see how those Dan Brown adaptations are, the Robert Langdon stories, the Da Vinci Code thing. I'm just curious, so I might just pick it up for, at least do the trial and check out a couple episodes. But yeah, I mean, I have HBO Max. I'm getting charged like $15 a month for it, and I'm not using it at all. So I mean, I might as well just cancel it until I'm ready to something comes out that I'm wanting to actually sit down and devote time to.
And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're picking and choosing. Peacock, again, Peacock's the one that we talked about and had a pretty good laugh over as far as the one that's struggling the most on our Streaming 101 special. And you're checking out, you're one of the few going back there because there's a lot of people that don't have enough content. If you're not a WWE fan, that's the problem with that service. But there is always something to see. Like you said, you found something on Peacock. There are other people that have found something on other streaming platforms. So the thing that I like about this age is that if you don't like or don't use something, you can
Mhm.
cancel it and then pick it up later when there's something good to watch.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, man. Like there's always, yeah, there's plenty out there for everybody, but again, like it's hard to know who your audience is these days because so many people just watch so many random things.
Right, absolutely. There's so many people out, but what are your thoughts out there on what's going on with the streaming world? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, it's been a great episode, my friend. I cannot thank you enough for stopping by as always. But before we head on out, as my wanted to go ahead and let you know or let everyone else know that that's right, Spinal Tap are getting back together. They're coming out in some cases, some retirement as far as that's concerned. Some people, some of the individuals involved have been not doing anything for quite a stretch, but they're all coming and getting back together for Spinal Tap to turn it back up to 11 at a future date. So that's in production. It's getting started. The writing process has begun. Your thoughts on a return to Spinal Tap, one of the greatest mockumentaries of all time?
I have actually never seen Spinal Tap,
Oh
so
my God.
I know. I'm sorry, that was before my time. So I'm just trying to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to refer to your expertise on that.
It is a funny movie. It is a little dated now these days, but it is still extremely well done. From you, and you look at that aspect, it is extremely well done. The jokes, for the most part, still hit in many cases. And if you look at it from the fact that just was such a different way of creating things, and just Rob Reiner just did a sensational job directing this, and obviously all the actors involved. And Spinal Tap went on to go ahead and become a successful group and artists as far as doing shows and doing live events and things of that nature later on. I mean, it gained a life on all of its own, even though the movie didn't do that great in its initial run. Spinal Tap in the videotape era in the late 80s and 90s became a huge rental property. And then when DVD and now streaming, it's always something that's become, I don't say it's a cult classic at this point, it's become a reasonable hit, a reasonable big hit because of all the money that's been made over the years. In fact, they went to a court case over it. They fought the a movie company over the rights to it, and as far as the income that was coming year in and year out for that film that they weren't getting a big chunk of. And because of the movie, the fact that it is so beloved after all these years, it's still getting that much money. So I'm telling you, my friend, this is actually a lot bigger news than what people are maybe thinking that it is, because a return to Spinal Tap, I don't know if it's going to be good, but at least it's worth a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if it's got a cult following, and this would also be a chance for people to be introduced to the original property. I mean, I guess I need to sit down and check it out. But yeah, anytime I go to like pop stores that sell pop culture items, you only see Spinal Tap records or Spinal Tap VHS, Spinal Tap DVD. See Spinal Tap T-shirts. Like, yeah, the name is definitely out there still. So, I mean, I guess if they can garner enough interest in this, this could be something that, yeah, it could be profitable.
I think it could be. It could be something if done right, could be really successful. Hey, it's all the original creators getting in on this. They didn't have to be doing this
Hmm.
because again, after the court case was decided in their favor,
Yeah.
they saw a new stream of revenue from all the years that they weren't collecting as much money. In fact, they were collecting just a pennies on what they actually deserved to make over the years because that movie has been such a big cult classic and hit over the course of the past few decades since it
Right.
came out in the early 80s, that it's something that they're now garnering and prospering off of. And the fact that they want to go back and create a number two all these years later, and obviously probably joke on that aspect is that they're doing it all these years later.
Yeah.
That's going to be a part of the joke, that it's going to be that much more interesting. I think if anybody is going to be able to and grab something and create something that's going to actually work for a modern audience, because of the fact that they have such a cynical way of seeing things, I
Hmm.
think that this Spinal Tap 2 reunion could be the best chance for that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm interested now, so maybe I'll go check out Spinal Tap 1 here.
Have you seen any of the Christopher Guest movies like Best in Show or man, gosh,
I know. I've heard of all of them. I just never like sat down to invest myself.
they're really good comedies, really strong, really well made. Again, they have not garnered the massive success, but they've always had their own following, kind of like the Wes Anderson movies in that realm. They had their own audience, but yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing a return to Spinal Tap. Are you ready to turn it back up to 11 with Spinal Tap? Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, like I said. But as always, any last thoughts before we head on out?
No, I think we covered everything that I know of. So
Okay.
I think we're good.
I hope your Xbox doesn't gather dust this fall.
Yeah, same, right? Same thing with all the other consoles.
Well, this again for me, this just tells me I don't need to go out and buy an Xbox console
Yeah. Well,
as soon as I wanted to.
they're gonna need a very prosperous showcase here in order to
Absolutely.
justify that.
Absolutely. All eyes will be on what Xbox announces in June. So
Yeah.
we're going to go ahead and update you on that on Game Source and Pop Culture Cosmos. But please go ahead, follow us wherever you can, Pop Culture Cosmos, and make sure to check us out because we cover the latest news and the latest news and trends in the world of pop culture every week right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great